dive right in. The theme of today is the power of repetition. And we just wanted to hear your perspective, Miguel, on this topic, the power of repetition. What do you have to share about that?
Okay, repetition, yeah. Yeah, so there definitely seems to be a recurring theme for me. It's that you do something, it doesn't quite work out. You have a look at how do I need to do this a little bit differently? What can I learn from last time I did it? And we get up and do it again. It's very connected to resilience, isn't it? And
Yeah.
perseverance and mastery.
Mm.
And yeah, sometimes it seems that that's why often why a lot of people don't achieve their potential, because we sort of live in a world where there's quite instant gratification focused,
Yes.
and often I sometimes say that a boy wants something straight away,
Mm.
whereas a man, and perhaps in the sacred masculine, sort of digs deep and says, okay, I will dig deep and I will persevere and I will keep doing what needs to be done in order to get there, even though which, it's a little bit like promoting my book. It's like we just keep plugging away and keep plugging away and we keep plugging away, and it's like, there's a deep knowing that, yeah, that is what needs to be done. Nothing in nature or nothing in the bigger picture, happens just like that.
Mm.
Often it may appear like that, but there's all sorts of repetitions going on behind the scenes, no?
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it. I think I really love where we've started this conversation, because the boy is the wonder, is the possibility, is the instant gratification. Like, I'm the creation master, and anything I want, I got it. Right? It's a very awesome instinct and thing that's built into us. And then I think along the journey, we also get to evolve into a mature perspective of understanding that the things that we truly desire, our purpose, our calling, our message that we're here, our gifts that we're here to give to the world, that stuff, it's like planting the seeds and nurturing it. And some things happen right away and it's awesome, and some things take time. So we really get to be patient. And I think that when you become a man or even a woman, when a woman goes from a girl to a woman, there's the maturity of knowing I'm here to nurture what I'm to bring to life. With the baby, right? The father and the mother, they have that patience with the baby to take it from infant, helpless, no power to do anything but just cry,
Yeah.
all the way into a full-fledged human being, a full-fledged creator of one's reality. And it's such an amazing evolution that a baby goes through, and that we go through.
Yeah, babies are a fantastic example, aren't they, of the power of repetition, because I can't remember the exact figures, but it's something like 100, 150 times that a baby will fall over before he gets close to mastering walking.
Wow.
And if what if we as babies tried it a couple of times and said, "Oh, give up, I can't do it." I've tried to walk twice and I'm not having it. We'd have a whole population crawling around everywhere. But I guess often there are these thoughts, the mind, yeah, interesting character, that that puts us down and says, because I haven't achieved it, and you're going to look silly, and you feel self-conscious, and you compare yourself and all that sort of stuff. But a baby hasn't got that. He's not like,
Mm-mm.
oh, I looked after whatever. He's just like, okay, just pick myself back up. Let's have another go.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to learn to do as adults as well. Just stay focused on what it is, and that because we haven't achieved it the first time, the second time, the third time, even the
Mm.
100th time, doesn't mean that we're any less. It actually means that we're more, because we've stuck with it.
That's right. That's right. Yes, I love it, Miguel. This is a beautiful start to the conversation. Let's talk about who you are and what you stand for, what your clients come to you for. I mentioned it a little bit in your intro, but in your own words, why don't you share it with our audience?
Okay, who am I? I think that's a deepening question that I think we keep asking that and keep finding layers and layers.
Yeah.
And at the moment, it feels as if life has invited me to walk the path of what I call the sacred masculine,
Hmm.
which is a kind of new type of masculinity, a different way of different ideas of different concepts of what it is to be a man. because it seems to me that when we look around the world, the results of patriarchy and lots of male leaders, I kind of feel that perhaps we could have done a better job, and we could be in a slightly different place now
Yeah.
than we actually are. So my path of the sacred masculine is something that, that I just, to begin with, I was always very focused on doing my inner work. As you mentioned in my intro, I had a challenging start to life. My mom died when I was young, and there wasn't a lot of love around in my home. My stepmom was pretty angry and quite violent and stuff. So it was just like living in this kind of fearful place. And so once I'd gone through my wild years, should we say, where I just went right off the tracks, and I ended up living on the road and drugs, crime, violence, and just kind of like really hit rock bottom. But once I came out of that, inspired by the birth of my son, I began to be very aware that, okay, you've got some serious wounds here that are dictating your behavior. So I really began focusing on healing my own wounds, but very quickly I realized that we are all connected. It's like human beings, we're all different cells in the body of humanity, and what we do to ourselves affects other cells of humanity, maybe around the other side of the world, in the way that we shop, or the choices that we make, or all these different things, the food that we eat. So I realized quite quickly that I can't heal myself in isolation. That has to be come in conjunction with service and contribution to the world. And the more that I can help and raise others up, the more it catalyzes my own healing and my own growth and my own, greatest possible self.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my journey in a nutshell. But the work that I do, apart from writing, books like this one, let me hold it up there, because my publisher will never forgive me if I forget to hold it up. As well as writing, because it's all the same kind of theme that weaves together. But what seems to have happened in this journey of my own self-healing is that I realized that we have this inner feminine and masculine inside us, which I call the divine twin flame.
Yeah.
And to a large extent, the whole of life is this dance between the feminine and the masculine. And I'm not just referring to gender-wise towards man and woman. I'm talking about the yin and yang, the anima, the animus. And what happened for me, kind of by chance, through a twin flame encounter with this awesome woman, she really helped me catalyze and heal that inner divine feminine, because I was always looking outside to woman to heal me, to complete me, to make me feel worthy and all this.
Yeah.
Till life that just wasn't working, and then I was forced to look inside, and this woman was just this amazing mirror that forced me to look inside. So there became about this inner marriage, this strength between the masculine aspects of myself and the feminine aspects, which had been very wounded for a long time. And then that just seemed to give me the ability. I've been walking this road of healing about 20 years. So by the time I got to this place, and I've been empowering people, homeless people for a while, disadvantaged youth, and then, always moving and changing, to this place where it was like, okay, well, if this has happened within you, you now have walked this path. So you have the tools, you have the awareness, you know what it takes to help others integrate the masculine and feminine within themselves. Because until that is healed to a certain extent and reasonably healthy, we will always have challenging and negative relationships in the world, because our inner divine twin flame, masculine and feminine, is kind of reflected by the relationships we have with men and women. And it seems to me that positive, loving relationships, conscious relationships, is kind of the foundation of transforming the world, really. If we get that right, if children are born from loving parents and they're raised in love, then wow, we turn things around so quickly. Everything gets turned around, instead of this separate, all these people, these little boys in men's bodies that are running governments and leading big organizations. We have conscious, whole, healthy individuals that are living from a sacred place, from an interconnectedness of life, rather than a what's in it for me, or seeing everything through the lens of the wounded inner child or father and mother wounds.
Wow. I really, I hear that especially young men have put up these walls to protect themselves. And so they show up on the outside, like with the wall, with the facade, with the mask of being a grown man, having their life together, having success, or whatever their pursuit is. But deep down inside, they still are not integrated with the healed, empowered little boy. So that little boy is running the show and running it out of fear. And that's causing all these consequences that we could potentially be seeing in our environment, in our government, in our world today, because what's running the show is someone who's the 6-year-old or whatever, who's afraid of getting hurt again, who's afraid of. So I think it's really powerful, man.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's beautiful work to be involved with, and it seems that, yeah, particularly men. I mean, for the most part, it's women that I'm working with at the moment, and it's around healing their inner masculine,
Yeah.
because we know that there are a lot of deep wounds, within woman, because man, patriarchy has abused his power in many ways, and is still doing that. And so there are a lot of deep wounds within women and around, so it's kind of like, oh, men are not to be trusted, and men, you don't quite know where you are with them, they're only after one thing and all this stuff. But in doing that, they have pushed away the masculine within themselves.
Yeah.
So they're not complete, they're rejecting an aspect of themselves. And the men, of course, it's not black and white, but often with the men that I'm working with, we've been brought up in this culture of big boys don't cry. And that men, a lot of the journey is this journey from the head back to the heart and back to actually feeling. And that when our heart and our head work in alignment, then we are operating from a more whole perspective as well, And the mind is often, sort of categorized as, the more masculine aspect of us, and the heart is the more feminine, the more emotion and feeling centered. So again, it's just bringing, isn't so much of health and success is about balance, isn't it? And so it's about balancing that masculine and feminine within men and women, and each one comes with a different story, but that we're all living different versions of the same story. It's my take on it. We all have our challenges. We were all raised by parents who weren't enlightened, and so we come with our wounds. But in the healing of the wounds is our gift. It's kind of like, you couldn't just be a baby, grow up in a perfect environment and be, totally sorted. There's something about going through the journey, through that hero's journey, through those challenges that polish us, that hone us, that bust our hearts open with compassion for others because of what we've experienced ourselves. So yeah.
It's gold, Miguel. I love it. So I want to go back in your journey and talk about some of those pivotal moments for you. I know that you mentioned like the having the mirror of a woman who is able to hold that light up to you to discover you were putting the onus on someone else to complete you, to fill you up, to make you whole again. Can you take us back to that time and tell us what you discovered? What were the things that you went through, so to speak, and how did you get through that phase as a more centered, connected to your own source, your own divine masculine and feminine through that period of time?
Yes. So we are taught to look outside, into the world. That's the way we're brought up. But what I've discovered is actually change is always an inside job. It's always an inside job. And so, this healing of ourselves is we have to make the changes inside. And I kind of knew this, and I've been playing with it for quite a while, but it wasn't until I met my twin flame that it was like, okay, well, let's not stop messing around now. Let's really do this work, because I'd made the commitment, and I'd said, yeah, I'm ready to do this work now. And so what happened was, it's in a nutshell, whenever she felt threatened or when things got difficult in our relationship, And this happened really quickly. It was like the honeymoon period was over, like, whoa, it was like this intense bliss and beauty and powerful connection and almost obsession. And then all this purging and this clearing started coming up. And what would happen, because my wounded little boy was always had his radar going to see whether she was going to close down, to see whether she was going to leave, to see whether she was going to abandon me,
Wow.
because that was what had happened to me as a baby. So all through my life, I'd been carrying this sort of fight or flight sense, and this thing, woman can't be trusted. Don't open your heart fully to her. And so my radar would be going for A, is she closing down? Is she leaving? Is she withdrawing? You know, in fear that that was it. She was going to disappear and never come back again, like my mom.
Wow.
Or the radar was finding fault with her and being really hypercritical as an excuse to, nah, don't let this woman in, you know, because look, she does this and she does that and she's got that. And it was so, you know, it was crazy. And I was just increasingly able to witness this and understand what was going on. But her default, when she, because of her childhood wound, was that she would close down. When things weren't going well for her, she would leave and she would withdraw. And so, you know, there was this perfect dynamic that, and what happened after about 4 months, we went away for a little while for a long weekend, and we had this big argument, and we came back early, and she said, I need some space to think about this relationship. I'm not sure if this is right or if I can handle it. And I said, well, what are you talking about, a few hours or, you know, a day or two? And she said, no, I want a couple of weeks. And something inside me, well, the wounded boy just heard that, and she left. And I just kind of fell to pieces, really. You know, I just fell to pieces, because it wasn't the man that fell to pieces, but it was, she had triggered exactly that perfect, you know, scenario that my woman was gone, mother was gone, the feminine energy was gone, and I didn't know if she was coming back.
Wow.
And so this launched me into this kind of like trauma episode, which kind of lasted for 8 days, because after 8 days she got back in touch with me, and we, you know, we moved forward. But the beginning of those 8 days, it was just so intense, and gradually, bit by bit, I began to like have this internal conversation. The man in me was going, hey, your girlfriend just needs a bit of space. You know, it's okay if she comes back, then that's great. If she's not, then that's how it's meant to be. Whereas the little boy was just, you know what it's like when you're emotional and you can't see things clearly. He was in so much pain. I couldn't eat properly. I couldn't sleep. I just had all this nausea and these aches in my solar plexus, in my heart, in my belly. And in the past, when similar things had happened, I'd always avoided it a little bit. You know, I got busy. You know, my younger days, I'd get stoned. You know, I'd work harder. I'd do anything not to feel what it was that I needed to feel. But this time I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. I will stay and I will feel whatever needs to be felt, because I had this image of, it was like this reservoir of pain that had been inside me all this time from my childhood, that just needed purging, just needed siphoning off, you know?
And how did you purge it? How did you process that?
Yeah. For the most part, it was just staying with it. You know, there's a Rumi line, you know, the Sufi mystic poet. He says, you know, the wound is the place where the light enters you. And I was kind of like repeating that like a mantra. And, you know, I have enough self-awareness to just keep bringing my awareness back to the sensation of the emotions, because actually emotions are just a sensation in the body, aren't they? They're just a vibration, a hum, an ache, a dull pain or something. It's only when our mind gets involved that it gets perpetuated, because it's like, oh, you shouldn't be feeling this, or, you know, there's a problem with you, or you're not a man, you need to man up, or, you know, you should have got over this by now, or this is never going to end. Once we can bring our awareness just to the sensation, it passes reasonably quickly. As I stayed with it and just felt the pain and didn't distract myself, it began to get gradually less. And that was when, you know, the voice of the man could begin to be heard and just calm the little boy down and say, hey, look, this is okay. You know, that this is okay. So I just, you know, there was no magic formula. It was just that awareness. And And I did, I did some stuff. I just felt compelled that I needed to go to the grave of my mother.
Wow.
I didn't actually know where she was buried. It was all kind of when she'd gone. It was all just sort of not spoken about and stuff. So I kind of did a bit of an initiation, a bit of a retreat. I just found her grave and drove until I got there and just kind of said goodbye to her properly and said and just sort of just talked to my little boy really and kind of said, hey, look, it's okay. Your mom's always. This is where her body is, but she's always in your heart, and you're safe now. It's done. That is done, and you survived it, and you were so brave, and just that being kind to yourself. Just it was a real invitation to just really begin to love all those aspects of myself.
Yeah. And I also hear that something people might be doing consciously or unconsciously is avoiding the pain, stuffing it back down. That even when you said, big boys or men don't cry, right? I think that there's a similar thing for women too, in that, hey, you got to keep it all together. You got to take care of the family. You got to, keep your composure. I don't know what the phrases are, but I think that both sides have this ethos, this mindset where it has to be repressed. It can't be shared in a authentic way. It can't be felt. It can't be allowed. It's like, no negative emotions, no heartbreak, no shame, no guilt. Stuff it down. And a lot of people do that through shopping, through drugs and alcohol, through other numbing things, addictions. And I think it's important that we can be aware. Hey, just sit with it. Breathe through it. What does it feel like? And just be present in your body. Don't go try to do something, watch TV, scroll through social media, but just be there with it and sit with it. I think that's powerful.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. It's so simple, but it is incredibly powerful. And often, we look for all these complicated. We overcomplicate it. If you could just have the courage to just feel it, But you see what I mean. I don't believe. The further I go through my life, the more I kind of let go of the whole duality thing and all the judgments and stuff. And that's part of my ongoing practice. But I don't really see that there are negative emotions. We've labeled a load of emotions negative and we've put them over there and gone, whatever you do, don't experience those, and we'll give you a load of strategies, like you say, addictions and so on, to actually avoid them. But those emotions are all signposts. Everything in these incredible human bodies, these minds, was designed by a master creator, and it all has its perfect use. It's all there for a reason, apart from men's nipples, obviously. I mean, that's obviously a real exception to the rule. But negative emotions, there aren't any negative emotions. They're signposts there to steer us away. From if you're feeling something intensely, then it's like, okay, life is saying that. There's a simplified way for me is that it's not in alignment with the truth of who you are. If you're feeling that emotion, and at the same time there may be a degree of, okay, I need to feel this and just let it go. As long as I'm not perpetuating it, it's something from the past.
Yeah.
They happen for a reason, don't they? These negative emotions, and they're always to bring our awareness to something that isn't in alignment with truth, with love, or using your words of being our greatest possible self.
Yeah. So how would you recommend that we label or relate to the spectrum of emotions that someone would typically call negative? Like, how can we distinguish between the pain? Is it painful emotions, and then empowering, freeing emotions is on the other side of happiness and joy, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question, and the closest I've come to some clarification around that is just talking about the negative emotions as the uncomfortable ones.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess by default, then we have the comfortable ones and the uncomfortable ones. But the uncomfortable ones are uncomfortable because they're saying, the things that bring us the comfortable emotions is life saying, yeah, you're on track. This is in alignment with what you're meant to be doing, why you're here. And the uncomfortable emotions are It's like that. I don't know if we used to play a game, hot and cold when you're little, and you'd say, "Yo, hot, hot, hot." You're getting
Yes.
hotter. You're getting hot. You're getting closer to it. The emotions are like that. They just
Mm.
say, "No, no, 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 no. Don't go there. Don't go there. Do something different. Do something different. Think different. Believe different. Behave different."
Mm. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's like an indicator. If we can relate to emotions as indicators, like I
hmm
want more indicators that I'm going in the right direction. I'm moving towards my
yeah,
bliss, my light, my love, my source.
yeah,
I'm becoming more aware of the indicators, the emotions that are showing me I'm moving away from that. I'm not in alignment with my source, with love and my purpose. And I think
yeah,
that just to zoom out when we're feeling the emotions and be able to reframe them and say, "Hey, this is
yeah,
an indicator. It's not right or wrong." And if I
yeah,
keep resisting it, if I keep trying to run from it, it's going to persist. It's going to want to overpower me. It's going to want to be validated because it's an indicator that is a part of me. And if I say I don't want it, then I'm saying I don't want a part of me, and that
yeah.
like creates resistance.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That pushing aspects of ourself away. Yeah, yeah. Totally, totally. It's it's a bit like where we started off when we were talking about the power of repetition,
Mm,
because you could have two people, because it's not to say that you're going to feel that emotion straight away, but the degree of the emotions that you feel is dependent on the thoughts.
mm,
Is it not? Usually, it's the mind. You have a thought that generates an emotion. So
right.
if you don't like the emotion, change the thought or change the behavior, change the action.
Mm,
So you can have two people that are persevering, that are repeating something in order to get somewhere. One person can be experiencing very little uncomfortable emotions because he is locked on. He knows what he's doing. He knows he's not going to get there straight away, and he knows it's going to perhaps take some hard work and some repetition and so on. Whereas the other person might be doing exactly the same thing, but their thoughts may be, "Oh, I should have done this by now. Oh, I'm never going to be able to do this. Oh,
yeah.
I always mess up. And I bet he's doing it quicker and better than me. And I don't know if I'm, you know what I mean? And then that will be generating all these different emotions, in their body.
Mm,
So, we have a massive choice. And I guess one of the powerful tools, of course, is the acceptance. Once we accept, okay, I'm feeling a bit of discomfort, then it will dissolve, rather than, as you would say, just saying, if we put resistance and try and deny an aspect of ourselves, we're resisting it. Life is saying, "Hey, I've got to turn up the heat because I'm trying to bring your attention to something," and we're going, "No, shove it down, numb it,
mm,
avoid it," and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to turn up the heat because you're not getting this.
yeah. Man, dude, this is powerful. So, like, really acknowledging the emotions. That's number one, Miguel, and allowing us to process them. That was your journey of being able to accept and embrace the indicator, the emotions that are uncomfortable, as well as the indicators of the emotions that are more pleasurable. And neither one is right or wrong. And we get to choose. We're the creator. We say, "Hey, what do I want more of? What am I committed to creating more of in this journey? What feels good for me?" So after that point, you got some awareness for yourself. When did it start becoming a priority for you to teach others this information and serve others from what you had really learned and started to integrate into your own life?
Yeah, it's been different levels and different layers. So yeah, I began teaching and a passion for empowering others, I say, about 20 years ago.
Hmm.
But it all came to a whole different level. Really, it was really just a year ago that there was this really big shift within me. There were kind of like some weird experiences and spiritual experiences and so on. And
Hmm.
I mean, when I really sort of became aware that it was like I've been playing small a little bit still, and there was a little bit of me that just wanted to sort of like just dip my toe in and just help a little bit here and there, but not fully commit to this is the path and this is what I commit my life to.
Yeah.
But life, yeah, I was at a conference, a goddess conference, this really powerful conference in Glastonbury last summer, and yeah, it just felt like it's like I was just in an altered state of consciousness the whole time that I was there. Kind of as
Hmm.
soon as I arrived, and when I came back, I started. writing poetry. This sacred masculine poetry started coming through me, and it was just like this creativity. It's like I was unblocked, and that coincided. I probably should have said with what I thought was the end of my twin flame relationship. So we'd gone our separate ways. We parted very amicably. I go to this conference. All this spiritual stuff happens. I come back. I start writing. And then when I was sharing it on social media, I was getting all this feedback and people saying, I've been having this real kind of Kundalini experiences and energetic experiences from your videos or from your poems, and all this like really weird stuff's going on. And I was kind of like going, whoa, well, I'm not sure what that's all about.
Do my words, do my gifts, does my creation have that power? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was really like that. It was like that for a while. And it was like, there was still this playing small, and people started using the word sacred masculine, and I kind of kept looking behind me going, who are you talking about, like, pointing at you. And I was and it took a while for me to say, okay, yeah, that this is happening. Yeah, I have been on this journey. Yeah, I am committed to to my own healing and to creating a more beautiful world for the children and the generations to come. And I have a deep reverence for everything feminine, for the divine feminine, because it seemed that was one of the gifts from the death of my mother. I tasted that mother divine feminine energy, and then it was gone. And that kind of set me on this journey to find that and reconnect with that and honor that.
So I just wanted to ask real quick, can we make a distinction for the listeners? How does someone know if they need to work on their divine masculine or their divine feminine?
Yeah, I mean, if you think of the yin yang symbol, they're both kind of, present within each other, and it's not a clear black and white thing. Mm-hmm. But the feminine aspects are usually more around sort of the receptivity, openness, loving, the tenderness. It's kind of like quite an opening. I've probably got a few things written down here because I always forget some of the important things. Yeah, the honoring of feelings and the tenderness and the. Sometimes it's like think of your ideal mother, and how can you be that mother to yourself? What would be the ideal mother? That is about the ideal sort of like feminine, creating that feminine, becoming that mother to ourselves. And so taking care of you, nourishing you, being looked after, being safe, being loving. And the masculine is probably more, it's more active, it's more pushing out there, and it's more speaking your truth, and it's more about boundaries, and it's more about integrity, and it's more about walking your talk and pushing forward, more the sort of repetition and so on. Wow. But, I think it's important to just re-say, this isn't about man and woman. When we're talking about masculine and feminine in this context, it's not to say that a woman is passive or that passive is any less, because actually we live in a society where space and non-doing are undervalued. And if you think of an orchestra or a symphony, it's the spaces between the notes that make it just as that make the piece of music beautiful. And so the feminine has been denigrated and has been, sort of like become second class quality. So it's almost like we need to raise those up and acknowledge those a little bit, and maybe slow down and just ease off a little bit on the do, especially when your GPS isn't working properly, you know what I mean?
Yeah, this is great. In your perspective, the feeling of unworthiness or not enoughness, is that central to either one of the energies, masculine or feminine, or is it pretty much equal in your opinion?
Yeah, it seems to underpin pretty much everything, isn't it? And, you probably find with the clients that you work with, and every client I've ever worked with, really the lowest common denominator is I am not enough. I'm unworthy of love. Yeah. But just on slightly up from the layer of that is, it's invariably the masculine or feminine wounds are connected to our mothering and our fathering. Because they are the first templates that we have of what the masculine is like or what the feminine is like. And then sometimes they're it's like, I had a conversation. I was working with a woman, and she was raped when she was a young woman, and we were focusing on that for a couple of sessions before I realized that rape and that violation by man was just a kind of playing out of what had already been seeded in the relationship with her father.
Wow.
Not that there was sexual abuse or anything, but it was this kind of overstepping of boundaries and violation and this sort of stuff. So, sometimes we think, oh, it's our last relationship or our, that's causing the problems or whatever. But our relationships with men or women are nearly always, well, they're always to a certain degree, affected by the relationship that we had with our parents.
Yeah. Yeah. This is powerful. I want to dive into the conversation about twin flames and why that became essential for you to share this message, to live your purpose, and even write a book about it. Like, tell us a little bit more about when twin flame and that whole relationship and what that means. When did that become really important for you?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Good questions. I like your questions. They're good. The twin flame thing was halfway through my twin flame relationship. I remember watching a video. I'd heard about it and stuff, and I'd always thought, I'm a spiritual kind of person, but I'm pretty grounded in my spirituality.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd always thought this twin flame stuff sounded a bit woo woo to me. So I tried to be open to everything, but I was like, I'm not sure that I need to really, find out more about that. But what it by chance, in one of the what I call a twin flame sabbatical, where me and my partner had separated because it all just got too intense and it was too painful.
Yeah.
I happened to come up to, I think maybe somebody sent me something on social media, this article about the different aspects of a twin flame relationship, and I was, starting from a skeptical place. I was just like, oh my goodness, that is exactly what's been happening. That's exactly what's been going on. And in essence, I think a twin, I think anybody, you see, I don't believe that there's this stuff about, and this is just my way of looking at it.
Yeah.
That people talk about that your twin flame is a soul that's been cut in half, and and your feminine aspect, you have to find them to make yourself whole. That doesn't resonate for me. I believe that pretty much anybody, when there's an attraction, there potentially can be your twin flame. And what will determine whether they're a twin flame or not is the deepness of your commitment to love, to loving yourself and to being with this woman or being with this man, So that commitment, it seems, and with a little bit of divine orchestration of life, finding the right person and you to collide in the cosmic soup of 8 billion people just at the right time and at the right place, put those together, and you just get this supercharged, powerful opportunity to come home to the truth of who you are. Because your twin flame is just somebody that will really mirror any wounds and will bring up anything that is not love within you, will come to the surface to be healed, to be set free, to be released. Anything that is not in alignment with love and truth, they will bring to the surface. And I think what often the misconceptions with twin flame is that that's as far as it goes, that, my twin flame, will complete me and then we'll live happily ever after. But it's this remembrance that the reason why this woman, in my case, is in my life is to catalyze and facilitate that healing of my inner twin flame. And that's what makes me whole. And then that's what makes a healthy relationship. Because when I am whole unto myself and she is whole unto herself, then there is no codependency and we come together with a whole different energy. And then if you want to get really woo-woo, then we can really start transcending into this place of sacred sexuality and oneness and divine union, which I believe at the end of the day is what we're on this planet for.
Yes. It's beautiful to feel that to feel into that, to trust that, to have faith that that's why we're here. I believe that. Other people in the audience, you are entitled to your own beliefs, your own paradigm, wherever you feel that we are going. I totally resonate with that, Miguel, of really harmonizing those energies with the person of the opposite sex for me, the woman of my dreams, who's able to reflect back to me so I can evolve and really bring together my own twin flame within me, and then create that relationship with the twin flame outside of me, who's like my life partner, to constantly be reflecting and checking, hey, am I truly aligned with both the energies and showing up as my greatest possible self?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's lovely. It's really lovely to, and thank you for saying what you just said. And I can feel you feeling that. And yeah, that, because there was a little bit, we spoke briefly before. We don't know each other too well and so on. And there was a little bit of me was like, I wonder how deep I can go with Chris, and do I need to hold back on certain stuff. But increasingly, what I'm hearing for me, and this is part of the sacred masculine, is that I speak my truth.
Yeah.
I will speak my truth, and it's just my truth, and if it's the sum of my experiences, and I'm not trying to push it down anybody's throat or say this is how it is. It resonates for me, and it feels real for me, and it just increasingly, there is more and more evidence that it resonates for other people, and that people that I work with are more at peace afterwards. So it's like there's something going on here. So maybe it's just a story, but at the same time, the whole world is made up of stories, and this story works. And plus, there's a little bit of an aside as well, isn't there? Pretty much all the great mystics and teachers and spiritual gurus are all pointing at the same thing as well. So I can't take full credit for having discovered this all by myself.
Right. And I think that we're in a time where information is so rapidly being exchanged and spread around the world. What a beautiful time it is to be a teacher, to be a communicator, to be a conduit, to remind people who they really are, to remind people, hey, connect back to your soul, back to your source, so that you can be your greatest possible self. And we are blessed with the opportunity to remove ourselves and our own judgments about ourselves and our voice and our message, so that the channel is clear, so that people can be healed or heal themselves, so to speak. And I know that's like along the lines of why you wrote your book and what it's out to do. So can you tell us a little bit more about your book and why you wrote it in your own words?
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote it because I couldn't not write it. As soon as the idea arrived, it is my third book, and I hadn't written a book for quite a while. And yeah, it was, my twin flame and I had separated. It was one of our twin flame sabbaticals. And it was like, I need to write this story. I need to share this. I've discovered the great power in vulnerability, in just, sharing my own story, different versions of it, different aspects of it, and how powerful that is, because it just makes other people sort of, oh, it's not just me, we don't have to wear this mask of, oh, I'm so sorted, and we keep all the messy bits hidden, and and don't let anybody know about the bits where we're struggling. So I knew that I needed to share it, and I knew I can only ever write from the heart and just tell the story just as it was. But there was a little bit of me that was in there. It was a kickback at 50 Shades of Grey. There was a little bit of, how can I don't know, I forget the author, but forgive me, but how can trash like that sell so many copies? There needs to be a conscious, what people need to know a little bit more about what conscious relationships are about, and the purpose of relationship, and sacred sexuality, and the awakening of Kundalini, and the divine dance of the masculine and feminine. And of course, there was this little voice in my head going, who do you think you are, Miguel? You can't do that, and blah, blah, blah. But I know enough to just push through that. And so, I just sat down and just started writing, knowing that the world was ready for this story, because in some ways it seems as if the divine feminine woman has woken up before man. You know, the story of Sleeping Beauty, I just recently discovered the origins of the story is actually that it is the woman that kisses the man awake because he's fallen into a deep sleep. It's from a Babylonian myth of Tammuz.
Wow.
And actually, you know, that's what was coming to me. It was like, you know, the woman has kissed man awake. And this was what was happening for me. My twin flame was hearing voices, hearing the divine speaking to her, saying, bring him home. That's why the book is called Bring Him
Bring him
Home, because
home.
that was what she heard.
Wow.
And then as I began to talk about this with other people, I found that other women had had similar experiences where, in relation to their partners, they had heard the voice, bring him home. And I began to see, as I have done with all of my life, that my life is just a little microcosm of what is happening in the macrocosm. And if this is happening for me, this woman kissing man awake and asking him to, you know, step back into his power, to come home, to raise his consciousness, to remember how sacred life is, then it's happening on a bigger scale. And so it was just this sense of, okay, well, I need to share this story because this will be a seed, and it is part of what is happening. I am living this myth of the real Sleeping Beauty, and I can't not share it. I can't
Wow.
not.
It's incredible. This is beautiful, Miguel. I want to talk about who should read the book and what is in it. What will people get when they do read it?
Yeah. So it's for men and for women.
Okay.
It's, you know, I think it's unusual in one way because it is a love story written by a man, and it's very much from my perspective, although it's written in the third person. It's all true, everything that's in there, and even all the really weird stuff that you think, oh my God, that surely that couldn't have happened. Like, it all did happen. And the feedback that I'm getting is that people are saying that it is, as well as a beautiful and you know, a book that they can't put down,
Mm-hmm.
but they're saying that what I call the sacred masculine energy transmission
Wow.
is healing their sacred masculine. And sometimes it can be, I'll be honest, a little bit uncomfortable in that it's showing people things about themselves, because we're all living different versions of the same story
Mm.
that they hadn't quite realized or wasn't quite in their awareness. So it brings stuff to consciousness, and it brings stuff to consciousness around, you know, the sacredness of relationship. So it's a very much the editor, when he the initial feedback said it's unusual to find a book that is so much show and not very much tell, because he said most books tell you how to do relationships. Your story just shows the reader exactly what happened so that they can work out for themselves what applies and what pieces, you know, that resonate for them. So it's a book of, you know, it's got that sacred masculine energy transmission. It's a seed for healing. It's a seed to inspire men, perhaps, how to be more sacred and more conscious in their respect and reverence of woman, because she is an incredible, beautiful creature that is, you know, to be honored and revered. And it's a seed of hope for woman, you know, that there is a different way of relating, and that there is a new masculine energy that is awakening and that is arising on the planet.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So, you know, if you just like want a really good love story, then it's great. If you want something deeper, then, you know, then it's powerful as well. And yeah, you know, I'm not great at blowing my own trumpet, but
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, Miguel. Everyone, go get this book. Bring him home. You will awaken things within yourself, and like you said, bring those the trigger points, the triggered energy, the stuff that we may have overlooked or brushed
yes,
underneath the rug. That
yeah.
will come to the surface, and we get an opportunity, a gift, a blessing to integrate that, to heal it, to integrate it, just by being witness to your journey and your story, Miguel. So it's freaking powerful, man.
Thank you. That was a beautiful summary and a rephrasing. Thank you, Chris. Yeah.
Welcome. You're welcome. And I acknowledge you for the courage that it has taken just to get to where we are today. I know it's going to take even more courage to get this message out in bigger and bigger ways and serve even more people. And there's so many people who need this, Miguel, who are counting on this, who are, their soul. It's like they're like, Miguel, come on, we're waiting for this message. We're ready for it. We're ready to transcend the pain, the suffering, the being asleep. Both men and women, and bringing awareness to what we can do, how we can show up, who we can be in the world, so that it's really our greatest possible self. It's really the best life ever. It's really bliss. Like, I want more bliss on this planet, Miguel, and you are a conduit for that. So let's step it up even more, man. I got your back. Let's go.
Thank you, Chris. That's beautiful. Yeah, and I concur with everything that you say, and I really appreciate your energy and the work that you're doing. And it just, I spent a lot of my years working with very disadvantaged youth that had so given up, and that were, so to meet a young man like you who's just achieved what you've achieved and are doing what you're doing, it really fills my heart up as well, and it's like, there's hope, there's planets we're in an interesting place, this journey of humanity at the moment, but it gives me hope, and it gives me faith in it, and it just fills me up, when I meet people like yourself. So thank you as well.
Thank you, man. So let's wrap it up with, how can people stay connected with you? How can they get the book? And we'll do that, and then we'll go into like just the final parting words that you want our audience to walk away with and really integrate into their own lives. But first, let's tell them where they can go, how they can take action, how they can get the book.
Okay, so the book is no surprise. Bring Him Home is available on Amazon, Amazon.com, Amazon.uk. Barnes and Noble. You could, order it from most bookshops. If you particularly want a signed, personalized copy, then you have to go to my website where you can purchase it, and I'll get that out to you. My website is just www.migueldean.net. So it's nice and simple. Do have a look on there and have a rummage around and check out my one-to-one sessions if you feel that maybe you'd like to try a session and see with help with that integration of that feminine and masculine twin flame energy. And I'm pretty big on Facebook. I'm not a great big social media person. I've got a YouTube channel that you can find, Miguel Dean, Sacred Masculine Author. And Facebook, it's my professional page is Miguel Dean, Sacred Masculine. So any of those means of connecting, and getting a copy of the book. It's in Kindle version. We haven't quite got around to doing the audio version yet, but there's the paperback or the ebook. And I would be, I'm honoured and humbled by everybody that whenever anybody buys a book, it just always feels for me like there's another little seed that has gone out there. There's another seed that will be, that will grow and spread, and hopefully people will talk about it to other people, and that's how we change the world, isn't it? One little seed at a time, and we all plant in our different seeds in our different ways.
That's right, Miguel. Absolutely. So everyone, you can go to www.migueldean.net. That's MIGUELDEAN.net. And also facebook.com/Miguel Dean Author is how you can find him on Facebook, and just search Miguel Dean. You'll be able to find him, and definitely get a session scheduled if you felt like, man, I'm ready to reintegrate the masculine and the feminine. I'm ready to step into my greatest possible self. Miguel can definitely help you take those next steps. So thank you so much, Miguel. And let's talk about the final takeaways, what you really want to drive home from this conversation, man.
What I'd like my final words is that we are all so much more powerful than we've been led to believe by our, human stories. And we can create, heaven here on earth. It's always the little steps, little things, positive things, power of repetition, done over and over, result in massive changes. That is how I've got from where I was, a wounded little boy, to a drug addict, to homeless, to on the streets, to in a mess, to in this privileged place where I am now, of just being able to maybe facilitate a little bit of positivity and a little bit of something beautiful in the world. So just believe in yourself. Don't play small. Push through the fear, but be in a gentle, kind, loving way. And you can do anything that you want, especially when it is alignment with the betterment and the well-being and the love of the collective. If our personal goals are in alignment with the collective's goals, then you've got the divine consciousness behind you, and that is always going to be a winner.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Miguel. Thank you so much, man. I love you, brother. I appreciate the light that you're spreading in the world and this gift and all of your gifts that you're bringing to humanity. Keep up the epic creation. Keep playing big, man. I appreciate you. I see you. I acknowledge you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, thank you. And same to you. Same to you. Absolutely. Just mirror all that straight back at you. Lots of
Thank you.
love. Lots of love. Yeah.
Thank you, brother. You have an amazing rest of your day, Miguel, and we'll see you soon, okay?